It wasn't terribly different. Actually, we didn't get to as many places. We didn't go to Kiev on this trip because there wasn't time. But we did 3 concerts in Moscow and 2 in Leningrad and 2 in Riga. And if anything, they were more exciting than even in the first year, which was overwhelming to me.
Well, how did this extra excitement come about?
Well, I think it was because the people knew us and they were expecting us, you know.
So they built up to sort of a peak, you know?
Yes, and well, we met a lot of friends there that we had got to know the year before, you see.
I was going to ask you if you had the opportunity to involve yourselves in any personal relationships in Russia.
Well, not really, but we did make some friends, and I think that are very good friends among some of the musicians in Riga, particularly, and also an artist in Riga who gave me these paintings, by the way. And we went back and we took some paints to this chap, and he was thrilled to death. We also took various things for people that we had met the year before.
Do you correspond with any of them at all?
Yes, not too often. Terrible correspondence.
A second visit must have given you the opportunity to either confirm or negate some first impressions. Did you have reason to change your mind about anything the second time you went to Russia?
No, because, of course, the impressions I had, I know, were limited. But we were treated so well by everyone, and of course, as far as the musical public is concerned, I've never experienced anything like them anywhere, and I certainly wasn't disappointed in going back for the second time, not in the very least.
The audiences then differ considerably from North American audiences.
Yes, they really do. In their enthusiasm, they're completely uninhibited, and they hold nothing back at all. It's something you have to actually experience. It's hard to describe it. They're so overwhelmingly enthusiastic that, well, it's I don't know exactly how to describe it.
Quite an emotional experience,
It really
I imagine.
was, yes. And after the concerts were over, Weldon Kilburn and I would do sometimes as many as 8 and 9 encores. And the public would just keep on, you know, in the hall. They wouldn't go home and wouldn't go. And then they'd wait for you to leave the hall and walk along the street with you, you know, in the dead of winter and all this sort of thing. It's really a very heartwarming experience.
I suppose, in a sense, it was also rather rough on you.
Well, yes, it was. I mean, I was absolutely worn out at the end of it because I was giving so much all the time, you see, and but I wouldn't have missed it for anything.
Have you had any opportunity to form opinions on the Russian people generally and their way of life?
Well, not generally. I met a number of singers and some artists, and they seem to be very happy and well looked after. And if they were missing anything in their lives, it was very hard to tell. They didn't seem the least bit repressed or anything at all.
That's interesting. I gather that the artist has a rather unique position, perhaps a more treasured position than he has here.
Yes, I think so, and I think that it's the public there feels about their artists the way we incline to feel towards our ball players and hockey players.
What impressed you most about Russia after 2 visits, Lois?
Well, gosh, that's a very hard question to answer.
Do you arrange your programs for Russian audiences any differently from programs for another audience?
No, I didn't. No, in fact, I was advised to do, the regular sort of program that I normally do.
Have you found any one segment of the vocal literature that seems to go over best with Russian audiences?
Well, there was our English songs were terribly well received, and also people came to us and asked us for our music. There was one day when the lobby of our hotel was practically filled with people copying our music.
Is that right?
From morning till night, yes.
What English songs were they?
Well, there were English folk songs and some old English songs, some of the Elizabethan songs. And this music is not available, I guess, in Russia, you see, and that's why they were so eager to get the copies of the music.
So they just sat down in the lobby and scribbled it out on
Yes,
manuscript.
and then I think there were some people who photostated it also.
Isn't that funny? Are your programs arranged well in advance so they can translate program notes into Russian?
No, absolutely not. In fact, it was the last time we went there. We had sent programs through the Canadian Embassy, and they told us the programs had never arrived. And when we got to Russia, they hadn't even a program. They didn't know what we were planning to do at all, and we just improvised the programs. Well, then there was an announcer at the concert. Always they have an announcer, and he translated some of the songs into Russian.
Is this a custom at any concert that there's an on-stage announcer?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it's apparently always done.
I suppose traveling so far and so much and moving from climate to climate, you're constantly running the risk of catching cold.
Yes.
What do you do about this?
Well, I try not to. I take vitamins, that sort of thing, and I try to keep out of drafts and to dress sensibly in cold weather. But that's about all you can do, really.
The shock of moving from one climate to another, there's very little you can do. You simply have to adjust, don't you?
You really do, and adjust as quickly as possible.
Have you ever had to cancel a concert?
Yes, I have. Not too often, thank heaven, but from time to time, one becomes ill and there's nothing to be done.
No. When you're touring, how do you manage to keep brushed up on your repertoire? Where do you get time to settle down and think?
Well, I do a lot of thinking when I'm traveling, and I think through all my songs and whatnot. I spend hours and hours doing that, and if I have to study a new work, I do it also usually when I'm traveling, but that's very difficult because you have to save your voice for one thing when you're having a heavy tour, and I find that I have had so little time to sing a new work into my voice that sometimes I arrive at the performance practically never having experienced the actual physical doing of the
You've
piece.
been doing it in your head.
Yes.
It must require remarkable powers of concentration.
Well, it certainly does require that, and it's very frightening too.
Have you trained yourself to do this over a period of time?
Yes, I guess perhaps I have.
When you add the nervous strain and physical rigors of catching planes and trains in strange places to that of giving concerts, it sounds pretty staggering to me. Do you have any formula for keeping calm?
Not any formula, no. I try very hard to keep calm. And also, Weldon Kilburn, who has traveled with me a great deal, has always had the effect on me of calming me down if I do start to really get upset about things, He always managed to be able to sort of
settle you.
Yes.
Have you found that nervous strain was greater in your first years of traveling than it is now?
Oh, yes. There were a lot of things when I first started to travel that used to just, drive me crazy that I don't even notice them now. Little things.
Looking back over a number of enormously successful years of singing all over the world, where do you think you've had your greatest artistic satisfaction?
Well, I really don't know. When you're performing, you're always, striving for something that somehow eludes you. It's hard to say that you've had great satisfaction ever in a way, because of this thing that you're hoping for maybe the next time,
You've never actually been able to smugly sit down and say, I'm satisfied with myself. You're always striving for something more.
Oh, yes.
What do you like least about the life of a traveling artist?
Well, I'm sure people will hate me for saying this, but sometimes the parties absolutely kill me after concerts. Because in a concert, you've given everything. And at the end of it, you're really worn out. And then you very often have to go to a party and meet maybe 100 or 150 people, and none of whom you ever get to know because it's so short a time. And this is, I find, absolutely exhausting. And I could do without that all the time.